In this video, we'll jump right into the content for this course. This video will be broken down into two parts. Well, first, we'll download Android Studio, then we'll clone the project repository and make sure that we can get everything running inside of Android Studio. Now, for those of you who have done Android development before, some of this may seem like old hat, but since not everyone here may be an Android developer, I wanted to make sure that we're starting off with a level playing field. Let's start off by getting Android Studio. The way that I typically like to get Android Studio is actually not directly from Google, but by going to JetBrains. So for those of you who haven't used Android Studio before, it's actually based off IntelliJ IDEA, which is from JetBrains. And the way that they manage that is through a tool called JetBrains Toolbox. You can install all the JetBrains IDEs, including Android Studio. It's very simple. So all you need to do is go to jetbrains.com/toolbox, and you'll be greeted with a screen like this. You can then download and run the installer for the Toolbox app. And once you have it installed, it'll appear in your system tray at the bottom on Windows or at the top if you're on Mac. And then you can see all of the IDEs that JetBrains has available, including Android Studio. So it's just one-click install. All I need to do is find Android Studio and click Install. Now we have a fresh install of Android Studio. Let's go through the setup wizard. I'm going to click Don't Send. And then from here, I'm going to go through the setup wizard. I'll click Next. And I typically like to choose Custom, although you can pick Standard if you just want to get started really quick. But under Custom, I'll make sure that I select the JDK location. It does come prepackaged with an instance of JDK, which is excellent. I don't need to download that separately. I'll go ahead and hit Next again. I prefer the dark theme. And then for here, I want to make sure that I have everything installed. I'll make sure that I have the Android SDK, as well as the latest API that's available. Now, right now, at the time of recording, it's 33, but if you're on 34 or 35 by the time you're watching it, that's okay. For the third option, you can see I have Intel HAXM selected. Now I'm going to make sure that this is selected, and we'll come back to it here in a minute. But finally, this one at the bottom, Android Virtual Device, we'll make sure that's also selected. It'll create an emulator for me, so it's all ready to go after I have the setup wizard completed. But going back to Intel HAXM, this is important on Windows to have checked. You're not going to see it on Linux or Mac OS because this is specifically Intel's emulation suite for Windows. Basically, it allows you to have better performance whenever you're running an Android emulator. Now, in most cases, this is going to install just fine whenever I hit the next button. But if you run a hypervisor on Windows, HAXM and hypervisors can't run side by side. So you actually have to turn off the hypervisor in Windows. So if you run into a problem during installation, here's what you can do. Back on Windows, I'll open up the Start menu and search for Turn Windows Features On or Off. From here, I can see a bunch of features that are installed on my system, including Hyper-V. Now I have this unchecked, so that means I don't have hypervisor running on my system. If you do have it checked, you'll most likely need to uncheck it, hit OK, and restart your system to apply the changes. Then from there, you should be able to install Intel HAXM without any problem. But since I already have it unchecked, I should be good to go. I'll go back to the Android Studio setup, hit Next, then it'll ask me how much RAM to allocate to each of my emulators. Now, since I have a lot of RAM on my system, I'm comfortable with the recommendation of 4 GB. I'll go ahead and hit Next. It'll show me a summary of everything that's going to be installed. I'll hit Next again. And then for all of the different things that are going to be installed, I need to make sure that I accept the license agreements. So with the root item here selected, I'll go ahead and hit Accept. It'll accept for everything under here. I'll go down to the Intel Android emulator extras. I'll accept that and hit Finish. And now we have a fresh copy of Android Studio ready to go for the rest of the course. If you're running into any problems, I invite you to join me in an exclusive community with other developers just like you. Click this link to join the TLDR Android Discord server, where you'll get a chance to interact directly with me and with others taking this course. Now that wraps up the first step. Let's go on to the next step where we download the companion code that's hosted on GitHub. If you follow this URL, it will take you to a GitHub repository with all of the companion code for it. Now you can clone it or download it as a zip package, but if you do clone it, I'd like to show you how to lay it out by tags. As you can see here, right now I only have 2 tags, and by the time you're watching this, it will likely have more. But if I click it, it will have 2 different styles of tags with it. These are broken down by the lesson name. So it starts with the lesson name, in this case, completables, singles, maybes, and then start or end. So this is the starting point, and any changes that we make will be the ending point. And you'll see this pattern repeat for every single lesson that has code changes in it. Now, not every lesson we're going to actually be writing code. Sometimes it'll be just a presentation or a discussion, in which case there won't be any tags in GitHub to mark the differences. Now, let's go ahead and pull this down and then compile it and run it inside of Android Studio to make sure that everything is working as we'd expect. Back in Android Studio, I'm going to open the project, and then all I need to do is open up the root folder. And as you can see, it has this little Android icon indicating it recognizes it as an Android project. I'll go ahead and hit OK, and then trust a project, and then it should open up momentarily inside of Android Studio. Now that Android Studio is running and everything's had a chance to initialize, I'm going to go over to the device manager panel on the right and pop it out to make sure that I have at least one virtual device ready to go. Now, if you don't have this panel over on the right, you can go up to Tools and then Device Manager, and that will bring up the same panel. But this is the emulator that we told it to set up initially, and it should be ready to go. So I'll close this, and then I'll hit this play button at the very top. The application should spend a few minutes building, and then it should show up on the emulator. Now you can see our application is built and is running successfully. Now, this project that we're working on right now has everything that you need, including all of the Android libraries, as well as RxJava 3 and RxAndroid 3. So that's it. We've downloaded Android Studio, we've cloned and explored the project repository, and finally, we made sure that everything built and is working successfully. We'll talk about RxAndroid a little later on in the course, but by now, your project should be all set up and ready to go. Before we dive into the code any further, we need to momentarily pump the brakes and understand how the major components of RxJava work. We'll do that in the next video.